Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Square Circle Maniacs Pro Wrestling Podcast. My name is Johnny Bottles. To my left is Dr. Don Wayne, the neckbeard psychologist from Twitter. You may know him from his many, many hits, such as Get a Life, Wipe the Cheetos Off Your Fingers, When You're Naked on the Couch Masturbating to Sasha Banks, Do You Stick to the Cushion?
Good God.
And other sundry replies on Twitter. Dr. Don, how are you, sir?
I'm good, man. Been going through the Twitter feeds today, checking out some stuff on some wrestling news.
Yes.
We have a show in store where we want to break down a few of David Meltzer's
David,
that's what his name is, David, his ever-revolving mindset of what is good wrestling. My issue with David, I'm calling him Dumpster Dave from now on. That's the guy's name, right? He's Dumpster Dave. He calls himself a wrestling reporter. That's what he's been known for. He's a wrestling journalist, if you will. He only reports wrestling. Wrestling is a fandom, right? It's what it is. You're a fan of wrestling.
Yes.
You like the matches that you like. Here's been my issue, and this is why I said we should do a show about this. You can't call yourself a journalist or anything like that and also be a critic and rate what you saw. Because then that gives your fans the narrative that if they like something, or your readers, that gives the narrative that if they didn't like something that you do, well, then they're wrong and they need to readjust how they evaluate wrestling. That's
Sure.
where the crux of this comes from for me, is his forever wanting to hate on everything that is WWE related and never putting over legitimate drawing stars that were big in this business. Not ever.
Right.
Guess how many Macho Man Randy Savage 5-star matches he had?
I would say 0.
0. He didn't have a single one, according to Dave. To me, Randy Savage had one of the greatest WrestleMania matches I've ever seen in my entire life against Ricky Steamboat.
Ricky Steamboat, of course.
I was young. I was like, this is what wrestling can be. This is amazing. They're tearing each other apart. They're flying out of the ring. He's cheating. The ref doesn't see it. There's a baby face outside trying to help him. No 5-star match. So this is sort of the crux of this whole thing. And it also started when I started to notice the fandom in Dave getting more and more over the past several years. Just, it's happening more and more. Right? It's no longer about actually reporting. Now he's got a vested interest in this thing, it seems. And I don't know that he's on the payroll of AEW. But I do know that he's got guys in there that he's friends with. They named a finishing move after the guy. That's what they did. And he put them over. Do you remember anybody ever call him?
Driver.
Yes. Did anybody ever call a finishing move in the WWE the McMahon? Don't you dare say what it would have been. Do not say what it would have been.
It's the ultimate finishing move. I'll be right back, pal. I gotta take a shower.
I gotta take a Vinny. I'm going to give you the Vinny. Don't do it, Vince! Point being, some of the shit he's done over the past several months I wanted to highlight because it's out of control. He's officially out of his mind. A few months ago, or actually, real recently, I can't remember if it was a few months ago or when it was, he said, and I want to make sure I get this right, he said, poor people don't like AEW.
He did do that. He had some bullshit statistics about the average income of the AEW fan base versus the WWE fan base. And what happened, Don, was when SmackDown got dropped by Fox, Fox says, we're not going to go into talks with WWE for SmackDown. The economic picture there, we can't get the same ad rates as we can for other programming with professional wrestling. We can't charge X amount of dollars for professional wrestling as we do for American Idol or Bones, or I'm naming all these old shows, Simpsons, Family Guy, things like that. The Family Guy ad rates are higher than what the WWE SmackDown ad rates would be, even though SmackDown is the #1 network program on network programming, not cable, but network, Fox, NBC, CBS, blah, 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 on Friday nights, which is a graveyard normally for ratings on Friday nights.
Well, also, if you
So,
look at it on cable, NHL gets a higher ad rate, and wrestling doubles their ratings. Even AEW, as bad as that is, usually has 200 or 300,000 more people watching. It's just not seen as an audience that people see having extra income to spend on, which is insane when
right,
you think about all the wrestling shows, paraphernalia, and the channels that they buy.
all that. And the price of
Yeah,
the tickets when they go see it live.
yes. And I'm talking about hardcore fans, right? The guys that used to buy every 3 months, I'm getting a pay-per-view as a WWE fan. I don't care what it is. $60, I'm slapping it down. I want to get that $400 title. So it's absurd for him to say that only poor people don't like AEW. Also try to make it as though AEW fans were more high, they were the higher class of society. The
Sure.
way it was phrased was that if you watch WWE, you're a low brow wrestling fan. You don't understand what good wrestling is. So people have been calling him on that bullshit left and right here for the past several months.
Sure, they buy the AEW fans buy their Cheetos at Whole Foods as opposed to Walmart, like the lower class WWE fans. The AEW fans they buy their they buy their butter and thyme leaves that they use for deodorant at Whole Foods instead of buying a stick of Old Spice at the Dollar Tree, like a WWE fan.
Right. I mean, I don't know about you. I just get with the vanilla trees, rub it under my arm. I'm good to go.
That always works. Yes. Right now, I'm rocking the new car smell.
It's it's getting so far to the point I'm out of control that I just started going. I said, how much crazy shit can I pull up? That was the first one I pulled up today. It was also asked of him, and I missed this little snippet that was asked of Dave. We did not see Kevin Kelly broadcasting on Collision this week. What is the issue? Dave, the reporter, said, I prefer not to comment on that, but I appreciate you asking.
Because he doesn't know.
No, he did know. This was the week before Kevin Kelly got fired. He knew
Oh, okay.
he just wasn't going to talk about it because he's trying to
Because-
save face with Tony Khan.
Because Tony said, don't talk about it. Don't mention it. You sign an NDA, he's out the door. But we all know what happened to Kevin Kelly, or do we? Have we talked about that on the air? I think we did, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
About
This
the
is
sound
when
of freedom.
this is another gem that I wanted to talk about that got my attention. Back in December, Dave Meltzer reported on the Wrestling Observer Figure 4 Online, the Elimination Chamber in Perth, West Australia, has sold 7,800 tickets so far. He reported this because he got it through hearsay to another site. He didn't verify this. He didn't fact check this. He didn't do anything a wrestling reporter should or would do. He ran with this like a chicken with its head cut off. And then WrestleTick said, what the hell is this shit, man? I just reported, and this was it. 33,000 tickets have been sold for this event. Dave, what the hell are you doing? What are you doing? Do you understand how incompetent or how deliberately full of shit you have to be to put something like that out there?
Dude, he's paid by AEW. He's paid by Tony Khan to be the public relations arm of AEW for the internet, for social media. That's what Dave and Sean Ross Sapp are doing. These two guys white knight AEW nonstop. It's at the cost of their own subscriber base. His subscriber base is dwindling. That's why he discontinued the print edition of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, because no one was buying it. No one was subscribing to the print edition. So he said, okay, well, I'm not going to go and generate all this trash I've got all over my office floor. If you've ever seen pictures of his office, it's a shit show.
Oh, boy.
It's a shit show. Just Google Google Dave Meltzer's Wrestling Observer office, and it'll be a shot of him sitting there with a microphone over his head for some documentary that I guess Dark Side of the Ring, that he was being interviewed, and all these papers are just strewn all over the goddamn place. Horrendous.
That's how he gets down.
I definitely think that Dave Meltzer has a high-functioning case of autism where he can go out into the real world, lift weights like he does. He's in great shape. He's got the shoe polish in his hair. He's got the face pulled back tight. And He's taking care of himself at age 60. He's been in this game a long time. He's 60 years old. And God bless him for what he did. I mean, we wouldn't have known. We wouldn't have known any of the behind-the-scenes goings-on in the 70s and the 80s
we would not.
if it wasn't for
We would
Dave
not.
Meltzer. So he brought that to light. He did some great articles on the death of WCW and the rise of the Attitude Era and the Monday Night Wars. He was at his peak, Don, in that era, in the 90s. But now, he's got no sources in the WWE. His only source for AEW is Jericho and Tony Khan. And maybe probably the Young Bucks. The Young Bucks. And maybe wannabe tough guy, jiu-jitsu extraordinaire practitioner, Jon Moxley.
Who he loves to give 5-star ratings to, by the way. You guys can look it
5-star
up.
ratings from Moxley. Better wrestler than Kurt Angle.
It's got, I'm going to try to do this and not lose my shit. Right? So, Kurt Angle never got a 5-star match. Kurt Angle.
I heard that's really making the rounds.
Kurt Angle never got a 5-star match. The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania. Neither one of those matches got a 5-star match. The original Hell in a Cell did, but neither one of those matches got a 5-star match. I don't give a damn what you're judging it on. Those are two of the best matches you'll ever see in WrestleMania history. If they are not considered one of the best matches you could watch, if you're going to introduce a fan, and this is my idea of what a 5-star match should be, if you're going to introduce a fan and say, here's some great matches, I'm going to throw one of those on right away. I'm not going to throw on Mick Foley coming off the cage because that's a stunt, and it's crazy from watching that shit, right? It's crazy to watch that stuff. That could turn somebody off right away. And he might get his dinner from Zaxby's. He really might. So that's sort of one of the areas I want to talk about. The other one, like I said, some of the things he said, man, we just covered this.
Before you go on with that, hang on a second.
Go ahead.
Back in the day of Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker and all those hot matches in WWE, he was Don, he was handing out 5-star matches to all the All Japan and New Japan workers.
Yes.
He's got Dave Meltzer has a huge boner for Japanese wrestlers in general. When AEW signed Kazuki Kashikaka Okada, Dave Meltzer probably still has an erection that won't go down. He's probably got 6 ice packs on that thing right now to get it to go down. It's unbelievable. Okada is
his guy.
That's his guy.
And Kenny, those are his 2 guys. He loves those guys. He thinks they're the greatest thing ever.
And Kenny was exclusively a Japanese guy, a Japanese wrestler.
Because he couldn't make it in the States because no one would pay to watch that shit.
Right. And, the stuff that Kenny Omega used to do in the wrestling ring would curl your hair if you would ever go back and see the clips on YouTube or the occasional GIFs on Twitter. It's just horrendous. Wrestling a blow-up doll and thongs, wrestling the guy where he jams both of his hands.
And the guy's asshole.
While the guys will the top turnbuckle.
He takes his pants down and pins him with his butt to the guy's butt. It's ridiculous. And the fact that he's given this guy a pass should say all.
Wrestled a 10-year-old girl. He wrestled a 10-year-old girl who I suspect is the current Rio.
I suspect the same thing. I suspect the same thing. Another thing,
and he dressed up like a goddamn princess, said Block Larry.
So this also
the chat's on fire. The chat's on fire, Don.
This also came up on the Wrestling Observer. Another note from one of our readers who was there live at the show in the section where fans only cared about WWE talent on the show and kept calling them as Dean Ambrose, Cesaro, or Daniel Bryan, and said several were outright racist at the start of the Ospreay versus Take a Shit match. With kung fu and taking offensive dialect about take a shitty and everything else, take a shit chant going, and thankfully no one went anywhere with it. Someone called him out and said, "Thank you, Dave, for bringing the racist WWE fans to light." He said, "It's unfair to label them as WWE fans. Read what I wrote." Okay. Why did WWE get mentioned here at all? Why?
It's a spin machine. Meltzer just has a spin machine now against the WWE. They're not paying him at all. He's got no contact. Nobody's talking to Meltzer in the WWE anymore. No one's dropping anything to Meltzer. And, they're tightening the ship over the WWE because if anyone's wondering what happened to the Boozer666 wrestling account on Twitter, that guy has deactivated his account. He got busted. He actually was an employee for the WWE. Have you heard about this?
Yeah, you talked about it earlier. Go ahead and give him a thought. And by the way, thank you all for joining us tonight on Friday night. SmackDown's coming up soon. We appreciate you guys taking an hour or so with us here. Really appreciate it. Please like and subscribe. We're getting that subscribe thing going. We gained like 14 since last night. We appreciate it, guys, really. Guys and guys.
God bless you. I appreciate it. Absolutely. We like to hit 400 by this time next week, if at all possible. So, we've got high hopes. But anyway, Boozer Wrestling.
High
hopes. Boozer Wrestling was a member of the Arabic announce team. He was a color commentator for the Arabic feed that goes overseas, the Saudi Arabia and Iran, all those countries over there. And that guy was privy to inside information, and he was putting it on Twitter. And they fed him some wrong information about Damian Priest cashing in at a SmackDown. I mean, on a WWE Monday Night Raw, like about, a month ago, Don, or 2 months ago? 2 months ago. And cashing in on Drew McIntyre. McIntyre was supposed to beat Rollins, and he was going to cash in on McIntyre.
Well, that's what he reported. That's what he reported. Or tweeted, I should say. We should say he tweeted.
And tweeted. He also said that Sasha Banks was coming back to the WWE to team with Bayley, and I even thought that because of what Bayley was putting out there in pictures on her Twitter feed, and Boozer backed it up.
Can I say something? She
ahead.
might have been part of the smoke screen trying to find out who was doing it. She might have been.
You're absolutely correct. You're right. I never thought about that. You're absolutely right. It could have been done that way. And they drew him out, and the bait. He took the bait, and I don't know if he's no longer employed, but his Twitter account's deactivated. You know who the suspects were? There were
he was clearly one of them.
Solo Sikoa.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that ain't happening.
And Jason Jordan, who's a producer behind the scenes.
The point of all this is that WWE has taken huge steps to tighten up their show because they finally got it through the wrestlers' heads. Hey, guys, leaking stories and scripts to guys like Dave Meltzer is bad for our company. The fans want to be surprised.
Right.
They don't want to know what's going to happen every show. Give them a surprise. So that's why that was important. But I wanted to get to something else here that Dave. I don't want to spend 45 minutes on this, but Dave Meltzer still reports pay-per-views for the WWE. The buys for the pay-per-views. I want that to sink in. The first week of the pay-per-view numbers, yes.
But they're on Peacock. They're also on pay-per-view.
This is
they're
my
also
point.
Pay-per-view for people who don't want to buy Peacock.
This is my point, right? The WWE Australia show, the pay-per-views were 5,900, which is the lowest show ever by the early time slot. The Royal Rumble did great with 25,000 bucks. They've been on Peacock for years. Why the hell would you not just get that if you're going to watch the WWE Network? And to my knowledge, the vast majority of people are subscribed to that if they're watching this. It's insane to me that he still reports shit like this. Why is he reporting pay-per-view buys for a company that's on a streaming platform? Is he going to report Raw's got a 0 rating next? Is he actually going to report the hour stream?
He's got the pickaxe out and the shovel digging for anything that's negative about the WWE, to throw that out there, to make as Randy Orton called him, Jacksonville Dixie, make him look good.
This is one that I want you to understand why I talk about the matches that he rates in WWE and how insanely biased it is.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Somebody tweeted him and said, think most balanced wrestling fans just want to know why Kurt's best matches were never rated as high as Jon Moxley's. When Kurt Angle is considered to be one of the best wrestlers in the world, he was a bump machine and a storyteller, not just a general. His response was not, here's what I said, here's why. It was, study cage match and get back to me. I can't deal with this guy coming off now and trying to say he's a wrestling journalist anymore. Someone get rid of this guy. I'm over this dude, man. People still paying. I need to know if anybody in the chat pays for this And that might have been the day one show. I don't know. Somebody tell me, please.
Are you subscribers to the Wrestling Observer website?
And if so, why? What about this guy makes you still pay for it? Because all of his shit that comes out, he has been on the fence over this new guy coming in, Okada, for weeks. For weeks, he acted like he didn't know he was coming in. And then he comes in and he says, it's been planned for months that he was going to join the Young Bucks. How can it be planned for weeks or for months if you're telling me you didn't even know it was coming in? Which one is it, Dave?
He forgets what he writes. Here's another example of what Meltzer, the outlandish shit that Meltzer says is. About a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, a man named Katsuri Shibata, a Japanese wrestler in New Japan, who Dave also has a hard one for, and he recently signed, maybe about, 3 months ago, to AEW. Shibata. He sustained a really, really bad brain injury from doing the headbutt spot. You've seen the headbutt spot.
Yeah.
Two guys sitting on the top turnbuckle, they're banging their heads on one another. This guy got hit so hard that he had a brain injury, and they had to operate. They stopped the match, they carted him out, they had to operate on this poor bastard. And he was out, they thought he was done, but he came back. Meltzer said it was a work. And then he was in the hospital for months, and Meltzer said, well, you know what they had to do? They had to take his brain out.
Yes, I heard this dumb shit.
They took his brain out, Don, and they put it in a glass jar.
It's the curious case of Dave Meltzer, man. I don't get it. I just want to know, somebody is subscribed to this guy. I want to know why. I'd like for somebody to tell us in the context of why you do it. I don't want to cover this guy any more than we have to. It's already getting my blood pressure up. There's so much we can keep going into, but I just want to call the guy out on his bullshit. I really do.
What is wrong with Dave Meltzer?
He clearly has a bias. He clearly has an agenda. He clearly has a favorite player in this game. He has never been honest about wrestling. He's never been. He likes what he likes, and that's okay. You can like what you like. But don't call yourself a journalist in the same breath that you tell me Kurt Angle never had a 5-star match. Don't do that.
My name's Johnny Bottles, Don. Johnny Bottles, I like beer. I like Miller Lite, I like Coors Light. I don't like Pabst Blue Ribbon. I don't like Miller High Life. I don't like Milwaukee's Best. I like Heineken. Okay? I don't like Carta Blanca. I like Corona. I don't like Modelo, but I like Modelo Dark. You like all different types of beer.
But you don't call yourself a reporter on beer. You don't say that you're a connoisseur on beer.
I'm not a connoisseur on beer because I haven't tried all the beers. I don't know. I could in good conscience say, drink Pabst Blue Ribbon is a great beer. I couldn't say that. Meltzer he's the same way. He likes his AEW. He likes
his Japanese wrestling.
He likes his Japanese wrestling. He likes his Mexican Lucha Libre.
Yes,
in certain companies, but not all the companies down there. Why are you a wrestling reporter then? You have to be neutral. You got to be neutral. Got to be neutral. Now people say we're not neutral. We're not neutral, Don, but this is just, we're not reporters.
I'm not a reporter.
We're not giving you the news. We aggregate the news. We also agitate the news. We aggregate the news from what we see on the internet and bring it to you and tell you what it all is.
We do have to make a correction from last night's show.
And we
did. Huh?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we got to make a correction on last night's show. Guys, gals, we apologize. Mm-hmm. We got the wrestling numbers from AEW last night. I don't want to dwell on this. I just want to make sure we get it right. We were wrong. They did not do an 801 number last night. They did not do 801,000 people. So we apologize for that. I'd like to correct that now and get it actually on the books. Johnny, what was that number again?
798, I believe. 798,000 people.
Holy
it gets better and better.
Shit.
It gets better and better.
She's a draw, pal. I just wanted to correct that before I go to the next thing. That was big today, and I don't know that you saw it.
Let me, before we leave her, before we
I
leave the
don't want
lap
to
of
even.
Mercedes
Don't
Monet,
touch her.
I'm going to say what I told you before we went on the air.
Okay.
In Variety,
The magazine.
the magazine, the newsletter, if you will, the Wrestling Observer, if you will, of the entertainment industry, they interviewed Mercedes Monet. Why? I have no idea. Because you don't hear about them interviewing Darby Allin or
Sasha
interviewing Britt
Banks.
Baker. Or they interviewed Mercedes Monet, and she says it was exhilarating. I felt like in my debut, I felt like Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Okay. I
And
think
a young man on Twitter responded, and you drew like stunning Steve Austin. And Don, when I told Don that, Don threw his hands up in the air and said, all right, I am done with this shit.
done. I can't. And yes, Colin, I'm sorry. I didn't even talk about him chopping the post, and then Meltzer got all over him for that because that was so over the top. It's not even worth bringing up. That just shows you what he has for a mental capacity. When guys literally gave each other like 5
Brain
Canadian
busters.
destroyers in a row, and none of them sold, he didn't have a problem with that. But a little bit of a hand slap, and he didn't sell it for more than 20 seconds, he has a huge issue with. So
Takashita dropped Osprey and a brain buster, who jumped right back up again and took another move and kicked out at one. And didn't sell shit. And he's worried about Gunther chopping the ring post, which is covered in plastic.
I need
You
to
know
know
what?
if you can. I need to know if you can hear this.
Check my heart rate.
We're going to move on to this. Did you see The Rock's promo today? Because he's going to be on SmackDown.
You sent it to me, but I'm sorry.
I sent you a piece of it. Here it is. I'm going to try to play it. Tell me if you can hear it. If not, I'll shut it up. It's a quick clip. Cody Rhodes had just finished getting a little bit glassy-eyed. He was crying on Raw about his mom, about wanting to give her the title, and this is what he said. This is where it went. This is right after he finished doing the skit.
Are you fucking kidding me?
Did you hear that? Holy shit!
You rarely hear The Rock drop the F-bomb, but I love heel Rock. Heel Rock is fantastic. Heel Hollywood Rock is fantastic. You know
Could
what?
you hear
When
that?
I saw,
I just want to know, could you hear it clearly?
we all could hear it. Yes, we all could hear it. Everybody in the chat heard it. All I can say is, when Cody Rhodes was crying like a pussy on Raw about handing that title to his mother, I said, he's just killed it. He's killed it.
He was killing it.
He killed finishing the story. He killed it. I hope he gets his ass beat.
And then if you didn't see this thing, it's about an 8
Why
minute
be a
clip.
pussy? Go ahead.
I cut about 15 seconds of that clip where The Rock just unloaded on him. If you get a chance, check it out. It's on Twitter. The Rock has his weight belt there, and he says, "Oh, you're going to get a belt. Your mama's going to get a belt. It's going to be this belt, and I'm going to beat your ass bloody with this belt, and I'm going to give it to your mother at ringside, and she's going to cry, and you're going to cry. You're all going to effing cry." I was like, "This is great, so good." Excuse me.
Have you seen this? I think tonight's the night we get the Rock's concert.
I have heard about it. I've heard about it a little bit, so I'm looking forward to the show tonight. But I didn't want to get off the subject because speaking of mobs, I watched the Buff Bagwell Dark Side of the Ring episode.
Let's go into this, pal. Go ahead. This is fantastic.
So there have been some stories out there about Buff Bagwell, and I want to give everybody a quick rundown on some of the shit I had heard that I didn't know were true.
They're all true.
They're all true. Everything you've ever heard about Buff Bagwell is true. It is the craziest shit I ever saw in my life. Buff Bagwell grew up a very affluential young man. His parents had a lot of money. His dad was a retired drag car racer. They owned a local lumber mill. They were rolling in money. They had a movie theater in their house. And we're talking about, this is the 80s, people. This wasn't like today when you could build a house and have it done for like $500,000. I'm not saying a $500,000 house isn't a big, expensive house. What I'm saying is back then, that shit was unheard of. So all of Buff's high school friends wanted to know Buff. They wanted to hang out with him. And they get into a few of these stories that happened. One of his best friend growing up was there to either confirm or deny it, as were several ex-wives, as were several ex-wrestlers. Buff Bagwell's dad used to ask him and his friend where they were going that night, and he would tell them. And the friend said his dad would just give him a bag of coke. Cocaine, people. His dad would just give him a bag of cocaine.
Here you go. Here you go. Here's one for you, too. Be safe out there.
When he said it, he goes, he knew we were going to get it anyway. He just wanted to make sure we got it from his guy because it was safe. It was safe cocaine.
There's no fentanyl. No fentanyl in that coke.
Well, back then they didn't have
coke back then in the 80s.
No.
Because I did some back then. I did a lot of it back then. But there was no fentanyl in the coke back then. It was like, you know what they put in that shit back then, Don?
Baking powder. Oh, I'll try Enfamil. Yes, I did hear about that.
Well, yes, they cut it with Enfamil.
Now, if there's parts of this that I'm missing, jump in any time, but I just want to give a quick down and dirty because it was the craziest shit I ever saw. They end up going broke because his dad bought Buff Bagwell a Corvette for his first car because that's what every 16-year-old kid needs is a 350 horsepower car in the 80s to do 0 to 60 for no ridiculous speeds.
Now, was it established that Mama mismanaged the lumberyard?
I think it was established.
She was the one who ran the lumberyard. His father had nothing to do with it.
I believe he was just spending money so much that they were going bankrupt because he was spending money on shit left and right. He didn't save any of it. He spent every penny he had.
Like a Continental sitting outside.
So they get into a fight in the house, and they're having an actual physical altercation. Buff Bagwell gets his pistol because apparently there were guns all over the house.
Hang on.
Okay, hold on. Go ahead.
It's Mama. Daddy Bagwell got into a fight with Mama Judy Bagwell.
And Buff got involved
in trying to protect
her. Okay, sorry.
And she was going to leave the house, and Daddy Bagwell said, "Where are you going?" "I'm leaving." He said, "You ain't leaving in my fucking car."
And then they got into it.
Get away from my car. And Buff came outside. What happened?
They're out there arguing, and his dad says, "What the hell are you doing with that gun?" He goes, "I hope nothing, get away from Mom. What are you doing?" His dad goes inside, gets another gun, and as he turns around, Buff Bagwell starts unloading rounds at his old man. His dad put his arm up. It went into his forearm, shattered it, or it would have gone straight into his heart. This is the life this guy led. Dead center would have killed him instantly. He's okay now. They reconcile. You find out they're best of friends. This is the craziest shit I've ever heard of. And then the father says, "You were right, son, defending your mom. I was way out of line."
How many times did he shoot him, though, Don?
Multiple. I forget the count, but it wasn't was a shot. He unloaded the clip. Like, bang, 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 bang.
The old man kept a loaded revolver on top of the refrigerator, just in case of emergency.
Well, here was one. I got to shoot my son. This all sounds fine. Time to shoot my son. He's gotten out of hand. Jesus.
I used to beat him with a belt. Now I have to shoot him with a 38.
Multiple times.
Jesus,
I've got to unload it every chamber. It has to happen.
Oh, Jesus, God almighty. And you told me to watch this shit, and I said, I can't get advice. I don't have advice. You got to see it, dude. You got to see it. Pal, you got to watch it. I said, okay. No problem. I'm glad I did. It's epic. Epic.
It gets to the point where he says, well, I find out my family's going broke. I'm married to my high school sweetheart by this point in time. He's stripping. I believe he was stripping at the time.
Well, you know what the son of a bitch did? You know what the son of a bitch did? He said, he didn't say, my family's going under. They bought me everything I could possibly imagine. I'm moving out. I'm not getting a job to support them. I'm moving the fuck out. I'm leaving this shit store behind.
Lawyer, we're going to get to the best part here in a minute, pal.
We're getting to the best parts, yes.
So he is now a gigolo, it turns out. I'm going to try to, it's so crazy, the story.
He was the male stripper.
Yes.
And he was married to a woman, his high school sweetheart. He was 21 years old? They both
Something
were?
Like that, yeah.
Yes. Go ahead.
And says, I'm going to be a male gigolo. Well, he goes on this show for male gigolos. And he proceeds to have what you could call Skinamax sex with this woman.
Yes. He didn't realize he was going to have to do that. This woman was she's like in her 40s.
Yeah.
And all these guys were in their 20s. And she was a cougar. Basically, it had a cougar. It's like The Bachelor, but with a cougar looking for a young 20-something man to seduce her and have sex with her. And he didn't realize that was what's,
So he goes he goes to the producer of the show afterwards and tells him, I didn't really have sex with her. It was really tough. He goes, Bud, you didn't have to have sex with that girl. What? They told me I did. No, you didn't have to have sex with her. So he did that, told his wife about it. They get a divorce. So that's over. Somehow he gets involved in, go ahead. I'm not trying to tell it, line by line. I'm just trying to hit some high points, pal. Like, it's just too much. It's so much to cover.
It's a lot to cover because he was married to like 3 people.
Humble says Buff Bagwell is a jerk. This is what's crazy. You would think everybody would think this of him. Both ex-wives and his current wife love the guy. Everybody that's ever worked with the guy loved the guy. Apparently,
even his
behind the
enemies
scenes,
love him.
even his enemies thinks he's the greatest guy ever. It's the damnedest thing I've ever seen. Somehow or other, he gets involved in wrestling, right?
What? No, hang on a second. We overshot something.
No.
He went to a gigolo website, Cowboys for Angels.
Yes, he did. But that was one of the websites. Hold on. From what I hear, and this is what I was going to talk about, the Buff Bagwell character, when he goes to WCW, right? He's got his friend. They got a tag team, all this other shit, whatever's going on. His roommate comes home, and he comes around the corner, and Buff Bagwell is standing there butt naked with shaving cream on his man region, with his mother shaving his bag.
She was holding his cock up so she wouldn't nick the cock, and she was shaving his bag.
And she
shaving him
turns at
down
the
like
roommate.
a dolphin.
She turns at the roommate and says, "Oh, hi, how you doing?" Like nothing was unusual about this at all. It was exactly the way it should be. And he said, I said, the fucking Bagwells turned around and left the house.
If you remember the referee from WCW and TNA, he wore shorts, black shorts. Slick Johnson was his name. That guy was Bagwell's best friend at the time, and he's the roommate that we're talking about here. He watched Bagwell standing in the bathtub while Judy Bagwell held his cock in her hand and supported it. She's a lefty. She supported it with her left hand and shaved his ass and his taint and his ball sack.
Wait, this is the best part, because when he asked him later, bro, why is your mom shaving your region? He said, that's what Buff Bagwell would do. Judy Bagwell does not get enough credit for selling the gimmick.
God. An unsung hero of professional wrestling. Judy Bagwell.
My mind went on a terror streak of what the hell isms in my head when this happened. Because all I could think then was, where do you go from here? In wrestling terms, that was the finish. That was the finish. You were not kicking out of that.
That was it. That was it. That was a Canadian destroyer. That was a Canadian destroyer of crazy as hell. They're hillbillies. They're hillbillies.
Oh. Anyway, it goes on to talk about how he broke his neck in the ring, and that was a tragic accident. I thought he really was done.
Well, hang on a second. He became a gigolo on a website called Cowboys for Angels, and his second wife.
Oh, I forgot about that. I wasn't going to go down that road. He was married to his second wife when he was doing this,
and they were losing the house because he wasn't in WCW. No, wait a minute. He broke his neck.
Yeah, this was after.
He broke his neck in WCW, and they were going to lose the house. There's no money coming in. So what he did was he went on Cowboys for Angels, became a gigolo, and he would go out at night with like older women and come back home. It was like a regular job. It wasn't 9 to 5, of course, but it was 5 days a week. Well, he would come home. The wife finally got it. She wasn't working. She finally got a job to support herself. And he decided, well, she's making enough money she can live on her own. And he went to her and said, I've met someone. He met a woman who was like in her late 40s, early 50s. I'm in love with her. And I'm leaving. And that didn't last long at all. So
no, of course not.
He's a great guy. Great guy, Buff Bagwell. Hillbilly.
But while this was all going on, he also got into a crazy car accident. Knocked all of his teeth out. So when you hear the guy talk now, it's insane to hear him speak.
They got him to go to rehab.
He's back in rehab through DDT.
And he's driving home from a meeting. And he passed out because he had a seizure from
the withdrawal.
The withdrawals. He had a withdrawal seizure, they called it. And knocked all his chops out and all these huge head injuries and neck injuries, and he was jacked up. His neck was jacked up to begin with. But that plate that they had when he took that, what was that called? What was that movie?
It was a bulldog off the top rope or something like that.
The
wasn't
bulldog off the
Yeah.
top rope in a WCW match from the Steiner brothers. He was on Scott's shoulders, and Rick came off the top for the bulldog, and his head hit Rick's right shoulder and jammed his neck and broke his neck, bruised his spinal cord. That was a whole nother thing in WCW, where he turned face, then turned heel with
Yes.
everybody. Had a match, Judy Bagwell on a pole, all
Horrible.
this crazy shit.
Horrible. Anyway,
But after all this was over with, he got into the car accident and had the seizure from withdrawals. And they said if he didn't have that plate from that earlier injury in the ring supporting his neck, he would have broken his neck and been paralyzed from the neck down. That saved his life,
Miraculously-
basically.
miraculously, he survived this second insane wreck. It's just insane what this guy's been through. He seems to have his life together now. I know he was in the news a couple of times. They said he was under the influence. He denied it. We're not going to top the freaking shaving the bag story. So I'm just trying to, long story
Where
short.
can you go from there? Where
can't.
can you go from there? Your
I'm
mother's
out.
shaving your nuts.
I'm out. Anyway, that was the show. Give it a chance if you haven't. We summed up a lot of the good parts. When you hear the story, you're going to freak out. They also had another story this week on Razor Ramon, Scott Hall.
WWE legends, right?
I knew most of the stuff about this, so I just want to hit some of the high points before we, get out of this.
They're low
phase.
points, Don. They're really
Well,
low
look,
points.
the high
It was a
points
sad
in terms
story.
of his story. If you don't know who Scott Hall was, he was Razor Ramon back in the 90s. He went on to WCW. He was part of the NWO, right? Had a huge story with them. Had a great backstory. The guy was amazing in the ring. He had an amazing mind for the business. Well, he worked at a strip club where he got into an altercation with a guy, and the guy pulled a gun. Scott Hall wrestled the gun away and ended up having to shoot him, and it killed him. From that point on, Scott Hall never got over this. He was a very religious guy, and he felt like he was going to go to hell because of this, because God would not
Yes.
forgive him. He felt like he was going to go to hell no matter what. So he developed a very serious chemical and drinking problem.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he went to DDP's
Self-destruction.
house. I thought he had gotten clean after that. Turns out he did not, if you watch the episode. He was still
Still drinking
drinking. He
vodka.
was still having problems. This is the part of the show that really broke my heart. He walked into his kitchen. They said to get Kool-Aid. I don't know what was going on. I wasn't there. But apparently he fell because he fell and broke his hip. And was on the floor for 3 days before somebody came in and did a wellness check.
Right.
And by then his body was just breaking down. He had broken his hip. His
He
organs
continued
were
to
killing.
drink. X-Pac said he continued to drink while he was laying on the floor because that blood alcohol was so high when they got there, and he was gone. And he got a hold of the vodka while he was laying there on the floor and continued the drinking, and that sustained him until he finally passed. He was going into the kitchen for a little Grey Goose 545 to add to that Kool-Aid, and he was done. Sad story. Everyone said, whoever met Scott Hall and worked with him backstage, and the ideas that he gave to people who were coming up in the wrestling industry, he had a mind for the business like no other.
He was
amazing. The
one of a
idea.
kind.
He came up with the crow idea and the black and white makeup.
Yes.
Thing. He's the guy
Yes.
who came up with it.
He was an amazing mind. It was sad to hear the story of this. It was, here we go. Yeah. All right. Thanks, Colin. It was DDP that did the wellness check. I don't remember who it was. I just know one was finally done because they couldn't get a hold of it. It's a tragic story of a guy that could never get over his demons and has gone too soon. He wasn't a young man, but it was too soon to go out like that. So it's a heartbreaking story. Scott Hall is one of my favorite wrestlers ever. I put it this way. He was great in NWO. I freaking loved Razor Ramon. That's one of my favorite guys ever in the wrestling business.
So influential.
Yeah, I wanted to cover that real quick. Were there any other shows that we missed this week, Johnny, that we wanted to get into real quick? Because SmackDown's coming on. The Rock's going to be there. We might have a concert tonight. I'm looking forward to that. There was a little bit of wrestling business news I think you wanted to cover real quick because Booker T says he and CM Punk almost got into it once. Don't know if you saw
T
that
said,
story that came out.
Booker T came out and said, under his Booker T Huffman account, on Twitter, he said, "Look, y'all jumping up and down over something about me and CM Punk. It could have been a fight over a banana in catering. Why are you all getting crazy about this? It was
good.
nothing.
I just saw the
It was
headline.
nothing.
Okay,
nothing.
good. Because people will take this shit, man. It sounds like a Dave Meltzer story. We had an argument one time. They were fighting in the gym over a banana peel. What?
They're depraved."
What do you have over there, Johnny, that you want to talk about?
I've got something right now. If you're missing Ring of Honor, you're really missing out. You're missing out on things like this.
Oh, shit.
Cartwheel.
Oh,
Cartwheel
my God,
now.
this shit.
Over the cartwheel. Commander. Whoop. Cartwheel. Cartwheel. And cartwheel. Oh, we got 3 up the stage. Cartwheel. And no hands. Who's in control of these cartwheels? 3 down. Whoa!
That was Commander and Action Andretti, who have been both banished to the show that no one watches, Ring of Honor, on the Ring of Honor website. Honor Club, if you will. It's an honor to be there and join the club. They've killed the Canadian Destroyer. It's now... I thought ECW 2005 was bad. It's horrendous. This shit is just absolutely
I can't
horrendous.
understand if you own a promotion, you let something like that happen on national television later. How do you let this happen, dude?
It is, I can't say horrendous enough. It's horrendous.
It's
tremendously horrendous.
You know what it is as a wrestling fan? Do you know what it is?
A joke.
It's embarrassing as a wrestling fan because people
It is.
see this and go, what the hell is this shit? You've got The Rock dropping promos on Twitter that are to die for. On the other channel, you got these two jackasses playing fuck around with Johnny Fingertips like it's no big deal.
Fuck around with Johnny Fingertips. That sounds like a sexual assault case. That sounds horrible. But you know the neckbeards say that Johnny Fingertips. The neckbeards say there's too much talking in WWE. There's too many promos. Fuck. That's it. I'm done.
I'm sorry. All right, I'm back.
Jesus Christ. You make me knock down my entire kitchen. I knocked down my kitchen.
Goddamn Johnny Fingertips.
Johnny Fingertips. Jesus H. Christ.
Shit.
According to Raj Geary, who's a guy that you champion on
Raj.
Twitter.
I love Raj.
Yes. He says, listen to this, Ricky Starks is free from the reign of terror of Tony Khan. Ricky Starks' contract's expired, as we said. Everyone said, oh, no, he re-signed.
Yeah.
And we said,
no, he's
done. He's done. No, Eamon. Let's listen to Jesus Christ. Everybody wants to know about the background. Jesus H. Christ. Look what you made me do, you son of a bitch.
Oh, God. He said the background was a work.
It was a work the whole time. It was no. Actually, that is my kitchen and dining room. In that picture, that's on my green screen behind me. I can make it look like anything I want to, but yeah, the backgrounds will work. This is just a guest room, a storage room in my in the Bottles Bungalow where we originate this fucking podcast from. That's real right there where he's at. This is real here. Look at that door. Ooh, look at the door. Look at that shitty TV behind. Ooh.
Oh shit!
Give
so Ricky Starks
is free. Ricky Starks is free from AEW. You'll never see this shit on other shows, pal. We pull back the veil. We pull back the veil right now. That's the room you did the AEW watch along from a few months back. No, Larry, that was my living room where I was on that leather couch in my swank living room watching that shitty show.
I'm going to be off for a couple of weeks. Got a vacation coming. Would anybody be interested in the chat room of doing a watch along on, say, Monday Night Raw or maybe AEW for that matter? A watch along on AEW. We pause it for say 15 minutes
We don't mean Don's not going to be doing the show. Don's going to be doing the watch along.
Yeah.
Is what he's going to be doing. He doesn't have to get up at 4:30 in the morning when he's off, so we'll be able to sit there and converse and watch the show and do the watch along.
If anybody's interested, let me know. I think it'd be something fun to do. I've never done one. Bottles did one for about 20 minutes, so we'll see about that. Anyway, what's your next point here?
I did 20. I watched that fucking show for 2 hours.
I was in bed, dude.
It was a shit show. I endured 2 hours of that garbage. And my man Block Larry was with me the whole time.
We got one guy saying,
but anyway,
Warrior. Okay, go ahead.
Ricky Starks. His contract expired. He signed a contract with WWE for 5 years, worth $768,000. Now, that's spread out over 5 years, guys. That's not $768,000 a year. He's set to report to the Performance Center next week. So look for Ricky Starks to debut on NXT very, very soon. And he'll be out of there in no time. And he'll go to one of the shows on the main roster. And Don has just faded into the Twilight Zone. Did you see Rod Serling for a minute there where the lights went out?
I did. He was sitting over here with David Bowie.
Gotta love Rod Serling.
So that was pretty cool. That's good for him, though, man. I mean, I'm glad. I hope the guy gets some TV time. I'm looking forward to it myself. I'm looking forward to seeing this guy on NXT. I might even have to check in and watch that guy.
Here's something that was said by Brock Lesnar.
I've heard he might be coming back. I keep hearing Brock might be coming back.
He's in the 2K24 video game, but you can't play him as a character.
But now, you can play a story.
Christopher mentioned something about that. He's in the game earlier in the show. Is he playable, Christopher? Let me know.
He is not a playable character. I have it. What you do is there's a story mode in the WrestleMania thing.
Sure.
And you do the Undertaker match and you play as Brock Lesnar. You also have moments against Roman Reigns where they had the cash in at WrestleMania and you play against Brock Lesnar.
Yeah.
So I keep hearing that there is a possibility that Brock Lesnar is going to be in this game here in the next several weeks. I also hear that Brock Lesnar is trying to come back now to the WWE, that he will be part of the show here in the very near future.
Yeah.
You're having a hell of a time. We've had some crazy shows, ladies and gentlemen, but this might take the cake. This was great. I had a good time. Is there anything else before we close this out?
I'm just going to read what was said by Dave Meltzer. He said there was something behind the scenes this week that was done, the details of which were off the record, that indicated a less than hard line about Brock Lesnar not being used. However, one company source said there was no movement at all right now to bring Lesnar back as a performer. So anybody could do what he just did. We could say this right now.
Yes.
There was something behind the scenes of people wanting to sign Mercedes Moné back to WWE. Fuck the AEW contract. If she doesn't look there, she can come back anytime she wants to, and we'll sign her. However, there was no forward momentum taking her there.
It's also reported she signed It's also reported that she signed a 3-year deal with AEW guaranteed.
Yes, 3-year deal.
Please get the numbers on this before we close out. Tell the fans what they say she's going to make, Johnny.
$10 million a year.
Horse shit.
And Meltzer backtracked on that. Meltzer said it's not $10 million a year. It's not $5 million a year, which is the Charlotte Flair figure that she signed for $5 million a year with WWE. However, it's close. And the third year, both sides have the option to get out of the contract at the beginning of the third year. Nothing's happening, but if it changes, I knew about it. Dave Meltzer. Yes, Mr. T, you're exactly right.
That's it. That's it. I mean, that's it. Dave's go-to is plans change when he's totally wrong. And here's the other part before we go. Dave, if you're wrong, just say you're wrong. Make a correction. If you read the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, they always have a corrections page to stories if something was wrong. He never does this. He just deletes it and acts like it never happened.
He's reporting now that there's drama in the AEW women's locker room because Mercedes Moné said in that interview she expects to be back in the WWE in the future. And their attitude is, bitch, if you don't want to be here now, and if you want to go back, why don't you just go back? Dave's reporting that.
Of course he is. Hey, look, I'm telling you, it's not a work. It's real. Not a work. Oh shit, I did that. God bless America. Oh, I hit the wrong button.
And we didn't talk about John Moxley being choked out by the guy from Chili's.
Oh shit. Hold on.
Don Wade.
I totally forgot about this. If you have not seen this,
Go ahead.
The toughest son of a bitch in AEW, the guy that bleeds every time he's on, was in another mixed martial art type fight with a guy that looks like he is the manager at a local Chili's and got choked out with a leg choke. Here it is. Watch this shit go down, ladies and gentlemen. This is, we got buffering problems. Now I'm.
Uh-oh. Everybody must be logging on to this right now.
Well, this is probably because I was like, yo, wait a minute. Oh, bottles. I'm going to tell you guys right now, he choked him out with a leg tap. And before you say, well, you don't get in the ring, I'm also not the guy out here trying to prove that I'm a tough guy on wrestling shows every week, trying to prove everybody I'm the baddest man in the room. I'm not the guy doing that. Moxley is doing that. He got into another MMA fight that he entered a tournament against a guy that looks like he's, what would you say, easily 30 or 40 pounds less than John Moxley?
Probably about 30 and younger, of course, but
I don't think you're going to get it to work there, Bottles. I'm sorry.
probably not. Let's see if I can do it in the smaller version of it. Stop.
Drop,
Okay, then.
open down, shut him down, open up, shot. There we go. Anyway,
And Meltzer said that Will Ospreay made the deal with AEW while nobody would say it publicly. Paul Levesque from WWE made an offer way too low. Way too low.
because he's an unknown commodity. I promise you, Mr. T, when you see this fight, I'm sorry it didn't work, but when you see this, it's something else, man. Because he choked him out with a leg choke. He had his legs wrapped around him, but not in the position that you would think. It was more of an almost 69 type position. There we go. Bring that bad boy up.
I'm going to do it right here in the smaller version.
Now bring that bitch up. It'll work now.
Can. There it is.
Here we go.
The guy's got him down. Moxley is on top now, and even though he's on top, the guy's being choked.
The guy locks that leg, and he's choking Moxley out on his own shoulder. And there's
just tapped once. That was it. And what the hell happened? He's thinking to himself. What the hell happened? Is he bleeding? I think he's bleeding.
Can you imagine this shit happening in a Bill Watts territory back in the 80s?
Bill Watts would have fired the fucking guy right away.
Bill Watts would have beat his ass on the spot. Bill Watts would have been at the show and would have come out of the stands and beat his ass publicly just to embarrass him.
Yes.
All right, folks. I think it's time for SmackDown, Johnny.
I think so too.
Please like and subscribe. We love you guys watching the show. We love the interaction. You guys and gals are the absolute best, man. It's so great.
The chat room was on fire. He lost to Johnny Fingertips, as Ron said.
Like and subscribe. We love it.
Johnny Fingertips got him in the go behind.
He had him in the 68. I'll owe you one.
68. That's 71 now. You know why? Because things went up with inflation. That's why.
That's what it is.
Yes. Even the price of Grey Goose. You know, you like to drink Grey Goose, right?
I do, actually.
Till next week, Gordon Soley saying so long from the Sunshine State.